Okay, let's have a brief lesson on this somewhat challenging piece. In some ways, this piece is at the intermediate level. In other ways, it's at quite an advanced level. The things that make it more at the advanced level are some of the tricky chord fingerings that you have to navigate while you're playing the piece. And also that little harmonic section might be a little bit challenging if you haven't done that before. Once you get used to it, it's not that hard. You do have to kind of memorize it and make sure you know it really well. But once you understand it, it's not too tricky. So, I mean, I guess it'd be safe to put this on the later intermediate level or even the early advanced level. So, this is one of the most beautiful melodies in the repertoire. And whenever you have a piece with a melody, of course, just work on the melody on its own. You know, just play the melody on its own until you really feel like it's expressive, as the indication mentions. And just making sure that like you're phrasing it properly and you have some nice direction to your lines. And in this particular piece, maybe a little bit of vibrato. And you can just work on that melody until you have it really solid. The next thing you might want to do is just add in the bass notes. That would just be the stems up for the melody and the stems down on the lowest possible voice for the bass. And then you could leave out the accompaniment part. If you bought the tab version, then you can just kind of see it. The bass is just mainly open strings, but you could just add the bass line in. Let's see. And just to get a feel for what it might be like to phrase the melody nicely and just have one bass note, and then you can start adding in all those tricky chords. So let's just go through it. I don't have too much else to say. It's such a melodic piece that you need to really follow the melody and just navigate the chords and learn it really well. So starts off in first position. It's quite romantic in this sense that like it's really going to navigate the guitar to the sweet spots. So I'd recommend following the original fingerings and the fingerings in my score, which I didn't change much, by the way. Be subtle with those gliss. I mean, that one I wasn't so subtle, but some of the glissando marks, I would almost just think of them as guide fingers. So just keep it subtle. Except in a few spots where you want to be really expressive. So a couple places you really have to like move from position to position. My only advice is don't shortchange anything. Give that enough time and then shift. That's kind of a tricky chord, but at least you have the third finger as a guide finger, and you can make the rest of the shape in midair. You can slur that or not slur it. I changed from a 4-string bar there to a 3-string bar because of this harmonic. And then carry on. So those open string harmonics. If you haven't played harmonics before, just make sure you're right over the top of the fret. You don't push down, you just touch the string. You're right over top of the fret with a light touch. And then you can just play them one at a time. But just don't push down, and it's a specific millimeter right over top of the fret. So just make sure you have that specific spot. Next part. Might be a little bit of a stretch for some people, but it's pretty stable. First part's not not that hard. It's a bit of a handful sometimes, but in some ways that's good because it means all your fingers get to stay on the guitar, and so it's stable. Like having fingers down on the guitar and this slow, sustained texture, it's very stable. Now this next section in harmonics. First thing, just remember, harmonics are notes. These are melody notes. So make sure you're phrasing that melody really nicely. These harmonics, if you're not familiar with right hand kind of artificial harmonics, maybe don't do them. Maybe just play it as written with no harmonics. That will save you some trouble while you learn some additional techniques. And remember, I mean, this is an arrangement of a song, so you have some flexibility, although it was specifically arranged for guitar. But so, and regardless if you play harmonics or not, you should probably play the melody like that just to learn the shapes in the left hand, and so that you are playing the melody nicely, right? It's the same left hand movements regardless. Right hand harmonics are created by touching the specific spot that you need and then plucking with the A finger behind it. If you're familiar with 12th fret harmonics, which I'm sure you are if you're playing this piece, try out just some open string harmonics like that. So your I finger touches is placed over top of the fret, and then your A finger, it's going to pluck the string. Then put your finger on F and try F. So you move your finger over to the note F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, etc., down the line. So first thing to do is just play that melody on its own. You have to be really good at that if you're going to start adding in the other notes. It gets a little complicated, but really it's like normal playing to some extent. It's just a bit of a right hand handful. So you have to play your accompaniment pretty darn soft underneath those harmonics. So let me just say one more time. Priority is play the melody. So first time you practice bar 17 is just play that melody and get really used to it, even with the accompaniment, because you need to know that left hand anyway. So do that first. Second thing, play it in harmonics on its own. Until you know it really, really well. And then add in your accompaniment notes. But I kind of sight read these pieces, right, when I do lessons on them. I mean, I do practice them a little bit, but I'm kind of sight reading. But I had to memorize that section, like pretty much. You can see in the video, I do look back a few times, but I kind of had to memorize it because it's too complicated. You have to be so precise as to where you are that you really have to look at your right hand. So memorize it, and memorize it without harmonics, and then start practicing it that way. In terms of the right hand fingering, there's not much to say, just use whatever you can. It's mainly thumb. So thumb, thumb, and then I'd use M and P on the accompaniment note. M and P, and then kind of articulate with the whatever fingers in the upper voice. This one, you have to do thumb, M finger on the third string, and then your harmonics with two fingers. That's the one place that it's quite a right hand handful. So you have to play that harmonic with A and I, and then pluck the accompaniment with thumb and M. Do a little fold over bar. and then you're home free. Then notice that bar 25, the melody is in the 4th string note. So you have to bring out that 4th string note. I'm using a combination of the I finger and the thumb. And it's tough when you have all those other notes in there. Those things, keep them relatively soft because you want G, F. You don't want... That's actually accompaniment at that point. So just the 4th string. Here too, it's kind of tough. That's a dissonant chord, but just get that I finger to bring out D, D, F, E, F, G. Reach out. That's pretty much it. Like I said, in one way, it's a super simple piece. But in another way, because of the way that it utilizes the guitar, it's quite challenging. But if you are more on the intermediate level, just play the melody. Just play the melody on its own and really enjoy it. And if you decide to work on the rest of the notes, then great. If not, just add some bass notes in maybe, or none at all. Just play melody. That's what string players do all the time, is they just play melody and really get it sounding nice and beautiful. And if you're on the later intermediate or advanced level, then you can start piecing everything together nice and slowly, just remembering to sustain and using that model of putting the melody in the priority and then adding all the other layers underneath it to make sure that your melody stays prominent and that you're phrasing it